Yeah.
So, if the four of you kind of boil it all down to kind of a key takeaway, what would you say to companies about, what they should be thinking about in terms of enterprise applications? And I want to ask the four of you. My own would be something along the lines of, I think the enterprise applications market at this point really is a buyer's market because there are so many choices out there, and I think in the years ahead there's only going to be a greater explosion of choices in terms of enterprise applications. So when you're going out there shopping and selecting, realizing that you are in the driver's seat, and what that means too is you can use that position of power to negotiate, maybe some sort of a licensing agreement, maybe it's an uptime thing, something like that, anything, but realize, as a buyer in the world of enterprise apps, you are the most sought after person. Uh, John, what might be your key takeaway for companies?
Well, my feeling is that cloud services are really going to have to do a better job of convincing, especially small and mids of all sizes, that the big apps, the critical in-house apps like human relations, ERP, accounting, governance, risk management, uh, that it's safe to come out into the cloud, and they're secure as well as economical alternatives to on-premises applications. And the most convincing form of security guarantees, performance level agreements, and price incentives, as you mentioned, to get them to move to the cloud with confidence. And they should really look for a chance to survey potential customers' on-premise installations and show how they can perhaps reduce their on-premise infrastructure and costs by moving to the cloud. And I think, perhaps it will take some strategic projects to really convince some of the companies that are really kind of entrenched in their on-premise applications that the cloud provides a viable alternative.
Mm-hmm. Eileen, your final takeaway for folks, what's most important to be thinking about?
At this point, I think that security is critical, and key to that is coming up with a BYOD policy that makes sense for the corporation. So that means involving the line of business managers as well as IT and senior management, because senior management has to support it. They've got to say, this is our policy. Whatever it is, you've got to follow it, and everyone's got to be on board with it. They need to be educated. Employee education is important because a lot of employees don't realize the risks they take when they're accessing data on their mobile devices. So it's got to be a united front and create something that will work for everyone in the enterprise.
You mean if I have corporate documents on my smartphone, I leave my smartphone in the back of the cab, that could be a problem? Who knew? And
well, you're getting a lot of millennials coming into the workforce, and these 20-somethings, some don't really have a sense of privacy that us more mature people do. So you got to think about that too.
And what's your key takeaway for folks about enterprise apps?
Well, I think I tipped my hand earlier, and kind of talking about the importance of the IT organizations working together with their business counterparts. IT, I think, needs to recognize that the cloud is a way to give their business users some of the flexibility and ease of use and agility that they've been wanting for all of these years and clamoring for. And by the same token, I think that business needs to recognize that IT is going to be those partners that can actually help them get the applications that will meet all of those needs for ease of use and functionality and a cool looking interface. But again, it will also mean that it can integrate well with their existing architecture. They're secure. They're going to satisfy their regulatory requirements, and they can kind of help them zone in on their business requirements. And it's just very important to work together as a team, I think.
And of course, the various divisions might have some disagreement about what's most important. I mean, legal might want compliance. The office workers might want ease of use. So there might be some politicking going on there.
Yeah, definitely. But again, I think this is kind of a rare opportunity for IT to kind of help in, to step in. Again, they have a very high-level view of the organization and kind of the architecture of the organization and kind of the overall makeup. And it's kind of an opportunity for them to step in and help mediate and again ensure that everybody's happy.
Chris, your key takeaway. What matters most about enterprise applications?
Yeah, anticipating your question, James, I have a couple of notes here.
You're a step ahead of me.
No, we didn't talk about this point, but I want it to be a takeaway anyway, and it has to do with innovation. I write about innovation a lot in startups at eWeek, and this has to do with developing an enterprise app. And when you're a company that needs to find that function, that connection between you and your customers, or you and your value chain, what you need to do is you should really realize that it should not be a start from scratch project, because there are already so many good apps and components out there in the open source area that you can draw from to build upon. That's what it's all for. That's what it's all aimed at. The whole open source community is aimed at applications that help people. So if you find one that's close to what you want, take it and modify it to fit your own business requirements. And then the key thing is, remember to give back as much as you can to the community from where you acquired that code. And you can share and share alike on this, and then you can also put your own proprietary secret sauce into it. But that's what it's all about. You don't need to start from scratch. Use the community, build on it, and go from there.
And I think the key point there is to give back. I think a lot of the newer companies, especially some of the startups, are leveraging open source.
Yeah, they all are.
They're not always, dumping that code back into the code base as some of the legacy players are. I've heard complaints about that.
It's easy to say. It's really easy to say that we would not have the world we have today without open source software. We wouldn't have. You certainly wouldn't have the internet the way we have it today, and all the mobile apps that we have wouldn't exist without the open source community.
It's true. It is true. So that's a lot of good stuff. I appreciate the expertise from the four of you. I think I'm going to give us all a round of applause. I think that's a self-congratulatory applause. Why not? And I'll send out the link. We can all tweet it. And I thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, James.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
James.